Sudan is on the verge of a major famine in which millions of people could actually starve to death. This nightmare is being fueled by the UAE, a major U.S. ally who just so happens to be right next to one of the world's major transit points for oil. And it just so happens that that American ally is backing a genocidal, atrocious group of thugs who are committing massacres, who are raping, who are mass murdering. The media is obsessed with all things Israel and is fixated on Gaza because the media is anti-Semitic, but the media does not report on what's been going on in Sudan. The media does report on what's been going on in Sudan. The difference is that most people don't care about what's happening in Sudan because Sudan is a part of Africa and most people don't give a damn about Africa because the common way of thinking when it comes to Africa is that Africans are always killing each other. I've been looking at this hellish place called Sudan. It is an absolute nightmare. The country is in the midst of a civil war. Millions of people have been displaced. Scores of people have already been killed, and more people are going to be killed, and a lot of people are probably going to starve to death. It's already being said that Sudan could face a famine worse than the famine that occurred in Ethiopia 40 years ago, and that would mean millions of people starving to death. So it is an absolute nightmare. And why is this nightmare happening? Why is this hell occurring? Well, because you have two warring factions fighting over power, two dogs fighting over the same damn bone. You have the Sudanese government on one side, and then on the other side you have the RSF, or the Rapid Support Forces, which is a bunch of hoodlums and thugs pretending to be amazing warriors for the Arab race. They think that they are superior to Africans who don't have Arab blood because they have members of the Rapid Support Forces. They have some Arab blood. They have, 1/28th Arab blood, 1/100th of a cup of Arab blood streaming through their veins. And they think that they're somehow Allah's gift to the world. And so they will actually butcher people who they see as inferior. They will butcher people who they deem as inferior because they are non-Arab. But when you look at these Africans who are doing the butchery, they look like a bunch of black guys. I mean, they look pretty African to me. They don't look really Arab, but they speak Arab, and yeah, they have some Arab blood in them. So they are the gift from Jannah to the world. But it's just an absolute nightmare. And why is this nightmare happening? Well, as I've already said, you have two warring factions, but also you have external powers at play here. You have external powers who are involved. You have the UAE. The UAE has been supplying weapons to the RSF, and the UAE continues to deny this. The UAE continues to gaslight the world, saying, "What are you talking about?" I'm doing the Indian accent thing. It's difficult to do an Arab accent sometimes, even though I'm a Semitic person myself, but they're like, "Oh, what are you talking about? We're not arming anybody." Blah 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 blah. And they're just lying to people because it is a fact that they have been supporting the RSF. Now, why are they supporting the RSF? You will read that the UAE is heavily interested in having a seriously political position, geopolitical position in the world. They want to show people that they can be involved in conflicts, that they can have a proxy war. They want to show the world that they're powerful and that they have so much money to spend that they can support a war. They can back a faction. But if you ask me, the ultimate reason as to why the UAE is doing this is because of gold. The RSF has tons of gold. The leader of the RSF, whose name I don't remember, Mr. General Muhammad Hamdan Hemeti Dajalo, this hoodlum, this thug, this guy is one of the wealthiest men in all of Sudan. He has tons of gold. His paramilitary organization controls a whole bunch of gold mines, and so a lot of the gold gets funneled back to the UAE, and the UAE is pretending that this has nothing to do with them backing the RSF. Oh, no. We're not a bunch of pimps and thugs and perverts who are just interested in gold. No. We're not doing any of this stuff. We're not sending weapons to the people who are giving us gold? Oh, absolutely not. That would be impossible. That would be immoral. But again, you see this lying from these Semitic thugs in the desert. The sons of Abraham show us once again how principled and moral they can be. Last year, there was a massacre in this city in the I want to say in the West Darfur region. I think it's called Janina. And this massacre was absolutely horrendous. Thousands upon thousands of people were butchered by thugs. It was absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Sexual violence. I mean, you name it. It was like Tears of the Sun. It's just an absolute nightmare. Well, this massacre took place last year. And I want to say about 15,000 people were butchered. 15,000 people butchered by the RSF, butchered by these thugs who think that whose only power comes from gold. They have all this gold, so they think that they're a bunch of brave warriors when they are murderous thugs. And they're giving the gold to the UAE, and the UAE is giving them weapons. This is a major, major massacre. Imagine going into a city, butchering 15,000 people. Butchering, just imagine killing 1,000 people. Just imagine, well, don't imagine that, but just imagine 1,000 people being butchered. Just wrap your head around 1,000 people being butchered by a paramilitary organization. Now try to wrap your head around 15,000, 10,000 people being butchered. That's what the RSF did in this city last year in the West Darfur region. And now they're trying to besiege another city, this time in the North Darfur region. It is the city of El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur, and they're trying to take that city. And we all know what would happen if they succeed. They're going to commit another massacre. They're going to commit another atrocity. And this monstrous group of thugs is being backed by a major U.S. ally, the UAE. And the United States is not stopping the UAE. And you have to ask yourself why. Why is that? Why isn't the United States having a major confrontation? I'm not talking about a military confrontation, but just why isn't the United States seriously confronting the UAE on this? Well, it's quite obvious. It's because the UAE is right on the Strait of Hormuz. 20 to 30% of all the oil that the world consumes goes through the Strait of Hormuz. This is a major transit point for the exportation of oil. And it just so happens to be right next to one of America's biggest enemies, Iran. It's right in between Iran and the UAE. So you have an American enemy on one side, and you have an American ally on the other. And it just so happens that that American ally is backing a genocidal, atrocious group of thugs who are committing massacres, who are raping, who are mass murdering, who are stealing. Yes, people are starving in Sudan to a great extent because the RSF has been stealing livestock, stealing grain, and destroying grain storage facilities. And people are starving, and Sudan is on the verge of a major famine in which millions of people could actually starve to death. And this nightmare is being fueled by the UAE, a major U.S. ally who just so happens to be right next to one of the world's major transit points for oil. The United States is not going to risk losing that ally. It's not going to happen. The UAE could be backing another Holocaust, and the United States would not do anything about it because of oil and because you have a major U.S. ally right next to one of the world's biggest transit points for oil, if not the most important transit point for the exportation of oil, for the transportation of oil. It's right there. So you have big money involved. The UAE is getting gold, and they're a bunch of pimps and thugs. And we all know that the elites of the Arab world is just filled with pedophilia. It's absolutely sickening. So you have those sickos, and then you have America's interest. You have all of these thugs in Sudan who are giving gold for weapons. And who suffers? The average people who have nothing to do with it. It's like every other atrocity out there. There is one talking point that I want to address here, and that is the one that always says that the media is obsessed with all things Israel and is fixated on Gaza because the media is anti-Semitic and Israel is held to a double standard. But the media does not report on what's been going on in Sudan. If the media has not been reporting on what's been going on in Sudan, then how in the hell do we know about what's been going on in Sudan? The only reason why we know about what's been going on in Sudan is because the media reports on what's been going on in Sudan. Moreover, when I Google Israel, I find tons of articles about Israel and Gaza in the news. When I look up Sudan, I also find tons of articles reporting on what is going on in Sudan. So the media does report on what's been going on in Sudan. The difference is that most people don't care about what's happening in Sudan because Sudan is a part of Africa and most people don't give a damn about Africa because the common way of thinking when it comes to Africa is that Africans are always killing each other. There is always famine going on in Africa because we have all seen the commercials on television about feeding little African kids. So in our minds, there's always famine in Africa. They are always killing each other, so who gives a damn? That is the common way of seeing Africa. That is the common perspective when it comes to Africa. On the other hand, more people care about what's been going on in the Middle East. Why? Because the Middle East has a biblical connection. It has a biblical meaning because all of the stories in the Bible take place in the Middle East. And a ton of people in the world are either Christian, Muslim, or Jewish. And so the Middle East takes center stage for a lot of people's minds when it comes to looking at the news. So because the Middle East has a biblical meaning, especially Israel, because Israel is all over the Bible, a lot more people are going to care about what's been going on in the Middle East. And also, there are a lot of people who hate the fact that the United States makes excuses for Israel. There's that. And also, there are people who really just hate Jews. And so they obsess over Israel. Anyway, I just wanted to address that issue. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.